On March 28, 2025, a 7.7 earthquake struck Myanmar and Thailand, leaving us with unnerving scenes of the earthquake's power and devastation as cranes toppled everywhere, buildings collapsed everywhere, and even bridges were bouncing all over the place. Rooftop pools and water tanks were bursting at the seams, while many buildings were left unusable and will probably have to be demolished. There were scenes of nurses trying to save babies in hospitals during the earthquake. Amazing footage, and people who barely escaped with their life. We are going to look at why some buildings came crashing down to the ground, while other buildings sort of stood their ground and just kept swaying to the music. I'll show you videos that display the awesome strength and physics behind earthquakes. And these unnerving videos will show us just how mankind always tries to outsmart nature. Now, Microsoft AI software analyzed some satellite images, and it showed that 515 buildings had 80 to 100% damage, and 1,500 buildings had 20 to 80%. So as of the time of this video, there was a private school that had 40 students and 2 teachers were killed, when you can see here in this photo that it collapsed. And then there was also a monastery where 200 Buddhist monks had been killed as well. So it was pretty serious. And overall, they say that there's over 10,000 buildings across Myanmar that have collapsed or become severely damaged. And there was amazing rescues from the rubble of rescuing people alive and pulling them out safe. Amazing in some of these collapses. And residents everywhere were catching the most incredible videos of these building collapses. Everywhere you look, there's video of buildings coming down, temples coming down, kids stuck in the rubble of buildings that need to be rescued, buildings that are leaning, people in the streets not knowing where to go or what to do. And check this one out. This is the 2 tall buildings that were swaying in Bangkok, and the bridge between them is falling apart. But if you look where that green arrow is, you can see a man that jumped across the bridge as it was cracking. That's got to be the luckiest guy in Bangkok today, surviving that earthquake. And it's amazing how these tall buildings all just swayed. Look at these 2. They're swaying left and right there. And that's exactly what you want them to do. What you don't want them to do is sway too far or just snap in half. That's why they're flexible like this. Now this one was really scary here. A window washer got caught hanging on the building there, and he's just hanging on for dear life as that water tank on top of the building is unloading over him. And luckily he's sort of off to the side, but there'll be some parts of it where you'll see just a lot of water is ending up on top of him. And here's another very scary one right here. So this crane, at the same time that you can see the water tower is emptying its contents from the top of the building. And so here's another view of it, and you can see why I always warn people about staying away from cranes, even when there's not an earthquake. Just walk across the street or away from it, get by it as fast as you can. This one is very unnerving here. Can you imagine driving across this cable-stayed concrete bridge and feeling it bounce around like that? It looks like it's moving up maybe 10 feet or so. So let's take a closer look at the many angles that we have of this tower collapsing in Thailand. Based on the reports, this was the only tower we know of that collapsed in Bangkok. And it was built in a partnership between the Italian Thai Development PCL and the China Railway No. 10 Engineering Group. So that should tell you something right there. So the building had been topped out a year before in April 2024, and it was only 30% done in construction when it collapsed. This was the State Audit Office building under construction. But here you can see it coming down, and there goes the crane. And then here is another clip taken from down the street from a different angle. And this one doesn't show the collapse, but you can see when they zoom in, you can see the crane is swaying front to back big time. And here's another view from the street, and you can hear the people just panicking as they run away. And then here, again, someone captured it from a different angle, but look, they had the camera off of the tower when the collapse started. but at least they captured some of it coming down. Now this video shows it with the best clarity of where and how it started. It looks like it started up near the top, and we're going to show this again in slow motion so we can analyze the top of it there. I slowed it down 5x here for you so you can see the progression of the collapse from the roof. So if we go back here to the beginning of it, let's take a look at the building. Now, first of all, make sure you realize that, look how it's smooth down the left edge. So this is just before everything started to go south on it. Now, I can't tell if it looks like this column here is leaning to the right a little bit. Doesn't it look like it's not going quite straight? And that there might be something wrong with these two. That's what I'm a little uncertain of. It just looks like we have, across this level here, we have some sort of imbalance in the straight line. Because you notice how these are all straight lines going across here on these floors. But these floor sections here seem to be already out of alignment there. So I don't know if that caused something up here and maybe a weakening of these columns. So let's just kind of pull it forward a little bit so you can see it's starting to sink already. So it sank right here first. See that in the middle? And we go down a little more and then a little more. And now you're starting to see buckling on the side of the building here. Okay, but look, I'm also seeing some buckling down here as well. You see that right there on the left? And I'm seeing a little buckling on the right side of the building going down. Because remember, this was all perfectly straight edge a couple of seconds before. Let me back it up. See how everything is a perfect straight edge? You don't see any buckling or bulges or anything. It's just a nice flat edge. Then as it starts to collapse down, boom, there it goes. So now you're starting to see all the way down buckling here. Even though there's something happening at the top right now, there also seems to be buckling going at the bottom. So the collapse of this 33-story building in Bangkok, Thailand, looks very similar to the way the Champlain Towers condominium here in Miami collapsed. So those of you who have been following my channel for years, you've seen all of my videos that I've done on that Miami condo collapse. And you can see here how the two just look so similar, where it looks like it started at the roof, even though the one in Miami really started down in the basement. It collapsed first, but it caused the roof up above to collapse also, as all of the floors came pancaking down. So this almost makes me think that something happened at the bottom first, and we're going to show you that in another clip coming up. But I just wanted to show you here the progression in a little bit of more of a slower manner so we could see how everything happened. And gosh, this looks so much like the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center. But, you know, this is what happens when a building is pancaking. This is a classic pancaking. It just comes straight down. Now, this is by far the closest and clearest video showing it collapsing from the bottom, right at the construction site. Oh. Here again, I slowed the video down 5x for you. So now we can see it in a little bit more of a slower motion. And then we'll analyze it. But here you can see it's beginning to fall. There's your panels on the left sliding off and buckling. Now they're all buckling, and there comes your columns at the bottom. So after this, we'll take a look at it and see if we can't pinpoint where it first started at. Okay, so as we start off at the beginning, here's the workers walking on the ground. And I want you to pay special attention to this area right in here, because you're going to see some plume of dust cloud starting to form here, and it will get bigger and bigger. Now, I wish we had had the whole view going all the way up to the top, because at this point, we don't know if these clouds of dust are going to happen here before the roof up top started to pancake down. So that's kind of crucial to be able to tell what happened. But let me move it forward a bit here. And as we come up a bit, few more seconds, look right here. You see that? That's a cloud of dust that is starting there. And this also looks like it might be bending here, like it's giving away at this point, whatever this is. So it looks like it's something that's still under construction at the bottom there, even though this building was capped off a year ago. So the entire skeleton of this building should be able to withstand any type of acoustic amplification from earthquake, even 600 miles away. So now, as we move ahead another half second or so, you can see there's getting to be more dust there and more here. So something is already happening at this part of the floor. And notice how that at this point, the glass on the left is already buckling, and some of these panels are just getting ready to pop off now. Pop it back a couple of seconds. Remember how smooth? There it is, nice and smooth there. And in just a few seconds, it's already getting rippled there on the left side. And then notice how our dust cloud is now spread to these. It almost looks like, if this is indeed a flat slab connection to these columns here, they're popping here. It's almost doing a punching shear. If that is the type of a connection that they have here, it's a punching shear. Yeah, and so one of the columns around the bottom here must have buckled, or you started to see some punching shear in some of the columns. And so now you can see the whole building is now getting ready to come down. And right here, poof, these two columns already gave way at this point. So these two have just snapped. They didn't even hold it together. So I bet some of the engineers are going to be looking at the rebar. What's the quality of the rebar? Too much rebar, not enough aggregate in the concrete. And see, now you're getting a view up at the top what's going on. And it sort of looks like it's already started to pancake up top there. But, you know, it really seems like something happened down in this area first. My money says this building filled at the bottom first. See, so here it comes down now. And then you have a cloud and you can't even really tell what's happening from this point on. Okay, so you're thinking, great. So Thailand hasn't had any major earthquakes there pretty much ever. So why was this a problem with this earthquake being 600 miles away? In fact, here is a map showing all of the earthquakes that have struck Thailand since 1920. And as we can see, looking at the map, they've had very, very few earthquakes in Thailand. In fact, none of them have really been all that big at all. I think it looks like the magnitude of 5 right here. So Myanmar is back here, and here's Mandalay. Here's where the earthquake that struck last week was. But you can see they've had numerous large-scale earthquakes all over in Myanmar, and then, of course, offshore as well. But nothing big. And then here's Bangkok, a full 600 miles away. How could the earthquake from last week affect Bangkok this far away? Well, you know, it's a 7.7 earthquake, 600 miles away. But even then, you would think, well, that should put some distance and safety between it, right? Well, no, and I'll tell you why. Because Thailand has a big problem with its soil. It has this real kind of soft soil, and it's called alluvial soil. And the big problem with this alluvial soil is that seismic waves can pass through these soft, deep soils like it did here in Bangkok, and it increases the shaking intensity at the surface. So this is similar to like a bowl of jelly, you know how it just kind of like shakes all over the place when you bounce it around just a little bit? So it's kind of like that. Okay, so because this shaking gets amplified like this, it can actually make the earthquake feel a lot stronger than it is. And if you have a building that's designed to not even withstand who knows how much it's supposed to withstand, you could have a problem there. That's why in these soft soils, so the problem is you have to isolate the building's foundation from all of that shaking ground, right? And one of the ways they do that is by going through all of that shaky ground deeper with concrete piles until there's firmer ground beneath it. We do this all the time here in the United States. We go down to the bedrock. You go down to the limestone here in Florida. You go, deep down in until you can get to that much more firmer support. So that way it doesn't matter if the ground underneath is shaking, because the pylons are going down to the stronger ground, the stronger support beneath it. See, here's a great example of how the earthquakes work. You have the tectonic plates that rub together until one gives, and then you saw how it bounced around on the left-hand side. See, they just keep moving and bouncing as they rub against each other like that. See, watch, you'll see it snap right back up again. Boom. That's exactly how it works. So engineers and architects keep coming up with more ideas to isolate the building's movement from the Earth's movement below. Here's another example here of some other things that they've tried. The one on the right seems to be the one that we saw the most in action there on some of those videos in Thailand, where the tall condominiums just swayed left and right, but yet they didn't snap, they didn't break, and they certainly didn't collapse like that embarrassment of a 33-story building in Thailand 600 miles away. Now, you may have seen this clip going around on the news. I'm sure pretty much everybody's seen it by now. But they didn't show you as long as what I have. I have the full-length clip that I'm going to show you because they just showed you a few seconds of it. And I wanted to show you some of the things that happened that the news people did not point out to you. So here's some people hanging out in their pool there, and finally they got wise and decided to climb out. That was probably the best decision they could have made. And luckily, they also left the pool deck area, because had this entire pool collapsed and gone overboard, off to the side there, they could have been siphoned out along with the water. In fact, you just saw the lady fall down a second ago there, so there was already water going in both directions there. So this could have been really deadly. Now, I want you to take a look at this here. So just when we think things are done and that it looks like it's settling, all of a sudden, ooh, look at this. Watch what happens now. Oh, there goes the raft. So had they stayed on that raft, they could have gone right over the side of the building. Now, this might be an infinity pool, but it also may not be an infinity pool. When you have this amount of water rushing over the edge, like you see there, look at that. You're going to get sucked over the edge with that. That's a huge amount of water. You're not going to be able to fight that. And of course, it all settles down here now. But now let me show you something that happened here. Okay, now here is something that they didn't really mention on all those news clips. Now, see the volume of water that's hitting this? You think you're safe because you have this glass fence right here. But I bet nobody was thinking about an earthquake at this time. But watch what happens to this glass panel as the water keeps slapping against it. Right here, watch this right here. You're going to see these panels disappear. They're going to go over the side of the building. And if anybody had been sitting right there on the edge of the pool, who knows, they might have been taken out with them. Like, there it goes right there. Boom. It just, these three sections here just disappeared over the side. So that is really, really bad. See, now there goes more water now. And that's what enabled the raft to then go over a little while later. This one raft, see, boom. Because now the glass fence is no longer there to protect you. So that's why it went over. So that's the part they didn't show you on the news. Oops, bye-bye now. 25 floors down. So I want to know from you guys, let us know in the comments whether you would swim in a pool like this at the top of a building like that. I mean, that's just way too scary for me. Being an engineer, I know what can go wrong with these things. Everybody else is drunk and having fun. And I've been at some rooftop pools before, here in Fort Lauderdale. But, man, it just makes me so nervous. When you're in an earthquake-prone area like that and you see how that volume of water just starts moving, man, you could easily be thrown over the side of that building. And here is another example of a pool gone wild. But you know what? What if the water was enough that it kept slamming against the wall there and it busted through the wall? Now the entire pool evacuates, and then you could be siphoned right out of there, right off of the edge of the building. And this one seals the deal for me. I mean, if you weren't worried before about having a rooftop pool, this one ought to do it for you, because look at this one. Now, this one was probably taken after it settled down, but you can see that there's a chunk missing right there, or that little curb wall, that little knee wall there. See that? And the water's just going right over the side. And if you were caught up in the highest point when it was really bouncing around, you could end up over the edge of that building, man. Oof. I don't know why they seem to have an infatuation with putting these pools in all of these penthouse condos. And you really can't truly 100% protect yourself in an earthquake. But I kind of like this contraption right here. You're sleeping in your bed, and if there's an earthquake, it opens up, seals you up in there, and then it protects you, and then you have some food. I don't know if it has Netflix, though. And then check out this view. This is another one of those penthouse pools viewed from an adjacent building, and you can just see how much water goes gushing over the side there. Look at this, man. See, there really isn't a whole lot of protection there. I don't think you would survive. You'd probably just end up dropping to the street. Now, I don't think this is a pool leaking. I think this is a water tank on top of this building. And there's another one of those pools running over the edge. And Billy Graham's son, Franklin, is responding with Samaritan's Purse.
Samaritan's Purse is responding to the deadly 7.7 magnitude earthquake that struck Myanmar in just a few days ago. We are sending our field hospital. It's got operating theaters, it's got x-ray, it's got laboratory, it's got everything a person needs.
Also, if you like these engineering analysis videos, check out this video that I did over here on the FIU bridge collapse. Probably my most thorough engineering disaster video yet. And then check out this update here on the Ocean Gate submersible investigation, where the Coast Guard just a few weeks ago released some audio files. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see all of you on the next one.